Hello, this is AD with KRSchannel, and I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with the channel today, guys. We are not going to be discussing tarot. We're going to be talking about astrology, and specifically two different types of astrology and why I think one is more accurate than the other. But before we get into that, thank you so much. Welcome back to the channel. If you're old, welcome. If you are new, we are so happy to have you here as we grow and expand. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys. And yeah, especially if you're an astrology nerd or you think people are interested, then I highly recommend sharing this video just because it offers a different perspective and a different type of astrology that you may or may not heard about, and maybe somebody else might be interested. You know, spread the word if you think that this would benefit someone else. And before we really get into it, I do want to do a special shout out to my little sister, and also congratulations, I do graduate from high school. This would not be happening, hand to spirit, okay? This would not be happening if it wasn't for her. She is the one who brought this information to me at the beginning of pretty much this quarantine. And since quarantine started, I've been doing nothing but setting it. We talk about it every freaking day. She's a genius. She's better, probably better and like quicker at it than I am. I just so happen to be louder. So here's why I'm here and she's not. So this is simply like a passing of the baton, and I'm sharing information that we have gathered together to hopefully bring to y'all so y'all can enjoy it and kind of see how y'all feel about it. You know, some people think that astrology is for entertainment purposes. I say that because, you know, legal disclaimer, but I really think that there's some truth to it. And so we're going to discuss into why I think this is so important that we do actually look at ancient astrology, which is Vedic astrology, and sidereal placement, sidereal calculations, and really look into what is exactly Western, what when it comes to Western, what do we use astrology for and why? You know what I'm saying? So this is kind of one of those, it's a lot that we're discussing. I've tried to organize my thoughts in the best way that I can, but this is kind of a heady thing, and it's taken me about 20 times to even really get this video started, just because like I can feel myself like going off. So I'm hoping that this is like one of the last times that I have to record this. But yeah, let's get into it. I wanted to start off with the definition of astrology, like what is astrology itself? And according to Oxford Dictionary, you know, way from Kim Possible, according to Oxford Dictionary, astrology is a noun, the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies interpreted or having an influence on human affairs and the natural world. Okay, so that's just the broad definition of astrology. It's essentially saying, do the planets as they move in the sky, do they have anything to do with the world that we live in now? All right, and you can argue, is it a science? Is it not a science? I'm here to say that it is a science, and I think Sidereal Vedic astrology actually encompasses it as being a science even more than Western. Okay, and again, we're going to discuss as to why. But one of the main reasons that I really like Vedic astrology is because it was created with astronomers, with astrologers, and with religious leaders all together. So it's not as separate. All of the mythologies, are directly linked to the planets. So like Saturn is represented by Hindu gods, and you have Shiva and the Saktras. It's such this big world. So if you're just an interested person in astrology, I highly suggest that you study it, because it's unlike anything else, because it covers so many different topics, and it was built in such a smart way. I'm linking articles again in the description box so you can read it yourself, and I'm going to be linking some other channels that are speaking about how honestly great and just more accurate Vedic astrology is, simply because I think it was built with everybody in mind. Okay, so that is just the definition of astrology, guys. There's so many different types of astrologies. Again, we're just specifically talking about two. There's Chinese astrology, there's Russian, there's German. I don't know anything about any of those, but I do know a little bit of Chinese astrology. I'm a rat, hey now. And like, it's the year of the rat. So as you can see, different cultures have different interpretations of what do they think the stars, the moon, the planets, and how they affect us on life. So yeah, Western astrology is really popular over in the West. Obviously, we're here, America, shout out, woo woo, woo woo. We're handling this quarantine very well. Just kidding. But you know, we're over here, so that's Western, and this Eastern Vedic astrology. So it's really popular in India. All right, so I hope that I've laid the groundwork as best as I can. Again, if you have to play it a couple times to understand what I'm saying, please do not hesitate to click the back button, and I'm trying my best. Okay. So let's start with a story. I always like to start with a story because this is really what blew my mind about Western astrology versus Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology is just accurate. It's actually what's happening in the sky right now. And Western astrology is not. And if you ask a Western astrologer, they will tell you that it's actually not what's happening in the sky right now versus sidereal, which is. Now, what does that mean? If I got clobbered over the head right now, right? And I forgot everything about anything. But I just wanted to look up at the stars. Chances are I would look to see what was actually happening in the sky to see how that would influence. It wouldn't take extra steps and calculations and to get to that conclusion. I would just go off of what I see in the sky. So the easiest way to put it is sidereal, regardless of how you feel it. It is actually the true placements of what's actually happening in the sky at that moment, regardless of the hemisphere or the time of the year, okay? Regardless of the time of year. That is really the key difference. The sciences between these two astrologies are different. Sidereal Vedic astrology uses what's actually happening in the sky presently based on fixed stars. I'm sure that you've seen it. Fixed, meaning they stay. Now they do move, but it takes like 25,000 years for them to move. So the chances of us seeing them move in our lifetime is none. It's none. It's not going to happen. So they are fixed for our purposes, okay? And it moves ever so slightly. Where Western tropical astrology is based off of, it's based off of the sun and the equinoxes. So it's very seasonal. So that's why, depending on what day it is in the year, that's going to dictate what's happening, regardless of what's actually happening in the sky, guys. That is really the root, the grounding of why there's a huge difference. So if you've ever looked at your Vedic chart, it's a little bit backwards because, and this is it's a fact if you're, depending on what astrology you subscribe to, right? Western astrology is technically 26 degrees off, about 26 degrees off from what's actually happening in the sky right now. So that's why everything's a little delayed. I'm not sure about you guys, but that to me blew my mind because I just always assumed that when it said the sun was in Capricorn, I just assumed the sun was actually in Capricorn. If I grabbed my little telescope and ran outside, I would see the sun in Capricorn. That is not what Western astrology argues. One more time, that is not what Western astrology argues. Western astrology argues that the sun is in Capricorn simply because it's based on a calendar. It's based in that calendar year, which to me is inaccurate because as we know, calendars, especially the calendar that we use now, is based off of Julius Caesar, who was a man. And he decided to add a whole new month to it. And, again, I know it sounds like I'm really not trying to wage war. I'm just trying to offer a different perspective. And I think when it deals with what's actually happening in the sky at this present moment, I personally find that to be the more accurate of the two, because if I didn't know any better, that's probably what I would do. That's just what makes sense to me. And what was I'm sorry, yeah, but sidereal, it goes off of, so again, if I grab my telescope and it says the sun is in Capricorn, I would actually look up and see the sun in the constellation of Capricorn at that time, which to me makes sense. It makes it accurate if I'm looking at the stars and I see what's happening. And again, there is such a disconnect between the astronomers and the astrologers because astronomers are just like, you can't tell me that the sun is in Capricorn when I'm looking at it and it's not happening. That's why astronomers are able to discredit astrologers because it's not actually happening. But again, what did I mention? Astronomers and astrologers work together to create Sidereal Vedic. That is another key element as to why there's no differentiation. They're one and the same. And interestingly enough, most of the practitioners in astrology in India, for good or bad, which is another conversation, but most of them are coming from backgrounds of finances and really engineering stuff. Like it's really a science that it really takes a very specific kind of brain to kind of put all these puzzle pieces together. And so it's essentially a big puzzle piece. So yeah, it really appeals to the more logical side of the mind. If you're considered like logical person, you can genuinely look at a Sidereal Vedic chart and get to those very specific conclusions. Now, that being said, Western is accurate. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's right in its ways, but I'm here to argue that the more that the sun rotates, it doesn't actually account for the rotation. It doesn't actually account for the changes that are happening within the sky. So it's just going to get further and further away from the truth. Right now, you can argue it both ways. It's not that big of a difference. But if we continue looking at something that's genuinely going this way while something is saying what fixed in the sky, it's going to be wronger and wronger the more time that this goes off. So if you're genuinely interested in astrology, I do highly recommend that you look into your Vedic chart with the unbiased glasses of your Western knowledge, okay? Really look at it as if you've never seen your chart before and step outside of yourself. When I looked at my Vedic chart, and I mean this, it took me about 3 days to fully process the change. I love being a Pisces. I got it tatted on my wrist. Pisces till I die, gang, gang. But when I read the combination of Aquarius with the Aries moon, I was just like, wow, that way more describes me. Yes, I love being an artist. Yes, I love, creating. And I'm probably one of the most creative people that, I know. And that's not always a good thing because I'm also one of the brokest people that I know. Cha-cha. But anyways, but that's not me. I'm so much more than an artist. I'm a philanthropist. I charge. I'm quick-tempered. It just describes more of me than putting everything into this one part of my sign, which brings me to my next point as to why I really, really, really love Vedic astrology versus Western astrology. So in Western astrology, as we know, we think that the sun sign is the most important sign out of your chart, whereas Vedic astrology argues that your moon sign is the most important thing in your chart. What do we know about the sun? The sun is ego. Okay, the sun is ego, so it's big. It's what makes you feel good. It's what makes you get up in the morning, right? And I love to say that, but it's not all of you. Even if you read a Capricorn and you define yourself, there's some things that come in. I don't know what is up with me and Capricorn today. I'm really picking on y'all, but it's really just about what you feel would define yourself. If you had to describe yourself in 3 words, chances are you would probably describe the Virgo in Western that you are, because it's a different placement. You still have access to those energies. But I'm just saying that your ego is never the most important part of who you are. The ego is one of the things that can get you into the biggest trouble. And we just know this, if you're a spiritual person, one of the first things that you have to do is take your ego out of something so you can see it from a whole perspective. So the irony that we built an astrology that's really based on ego is ironic because it's one of the least spiritual parts of who we are. And another thing, just to claim that your sun sign is this and it's the most important thing, it's silly. It's like cutting off your arm. And Joni Patry said this, another Vedic astrologer, and it's so true. She's like, it's like cutting off your arm and then saying that's all who I am, when it's only one piece to a very complex and diverse puzzle. Okay, versus again sidereal Vedic astrology, it talks about your moon sign. Your moon, it's what you can't see. It's your thoughts. It's how you process things, right? That's such a different thing. And it's ruled by feminine energy versus sun masculine energy. So this is about the inner world, which you can't see. Real psychology, really getting into that mix of the things and the unknown. How does your brain work? And what do we know about brains? What do we know about thoughts? Thoughts lead to actions. Actions lead to manifestations. Okay. And so that is why it says that this is important. It's the most important thing. Not that it defines who you are. It just lets you know how your brain works. So then you can work with your brain to manifest. I love that principle. I love that principle because it opens you up. It takes your ego out of it and it lets you know how you think. I always knew that I was an impatient person. If somebody was if I'm one of those people, at the restaurant, if I'm waiting for over 20 minutes, I'm just like, hey, why is this taking so long? I'm one of those people. But in Western, I'm a Taurus moon, so I thought I was patient. As soon as I told my friend that I was an Aries moon, he was just like, oh, that makes so much sense. You're one of the most impatient people that I know. And I was like, what? What? How could I? I thought everybody thought like this. I thought everybody wanted something now. Everybody was moving fast. And then I completely found out that that's not the case. That's individual to me, right? And other people who share that same energies. But it really opened and stepped me up outside of myself to look at the grander picture. And that is what brings me to my third point of why I just love the difference and why I think that sidereal Vedic or Vedic sidereal astrology, and I'm sorry I'm using them interchangeably, but again, I linked those things so you can follow me. But that's why I love those. That's why I love Vedic sidereal astrology, because it really is accurate. And that, it really just boils down to being accurate, and it lets you step outside of yourself, and it lets you see things from a higher perspective that is not based in ego, that's based in fate. You see all these different puzzle pieces that come together, all these different energies that come together, and the way that they express themselves is so beautiful. And I just feel like when I've studied Western, it never really captured that feeling for me, because it was so like, my Venus is in Aries, so that means when it comes to relationships, that means that I am like really fast in relationships, versus my Venus being in Pisces, which is just like, Venus takes on a totally different meaning when you look at it from the lens of the mythologies. It's like Venus is so much more than relationships. It's your relationships with what you love, like what you like, what makes you happy. So that makes way more sense for Pisces to be there, because Piscean things make me extremely happy. They intoxicate me. Even having this conversation here intoxicates me. We get to talk about the occult. We get to talk about things, the unknown that are not seen, and it's in my Venus. So it's something that I want to bring to the forefront. It's something that I really want to curate. It makes so much sense. And again, with my Aquarius sun, I want to shed light on a situation. As we know about tarot, the Aquarius card is the star card. And what am I doing? What am I here doing right now? And I'm just using my chart as my experience so you can start seeing some of the connections that have been made. And I'm not saying that Western, if you really like your Western and you're tied to Western, then stick to it. But do not stick to Western if you do not really study your sidereal chart, because I've watched many of videos have this same conversation, and they're always just like, look, I know people who started off Western, studied Western, and the moment that they looked at sidereal and the sidereal true placements, they never went backwards. There's so many people who did not go backwards when they really sat and took time with their chart. So I'm just saying this, guys, to really, if astrology is something that interests you, and astrology is something that you want to use and subscribe to and like all this other stuff, then I highly suggest that you go do your own research and you come to your own conclusion about what astrology do you feel is the best for you. I just really love that, again, Sidereal Vedic is not ruled by ego. Simple as that. It's just not ruled by ego. You take it's in the few months now in quarantine that I've been working with the astrology and the science of it. I mean, it is so beautiful. It gives so much beautiful treatment to people. It's made me more forgiving. It's made me open up, just because I've had so much more access to energies, and just how we're also intertwined and interconnected. And I did not get that feeling from tropical Western astrology. I just didn't. And so there was something that clicked with me. And so that's why I really wanted to bring this to the forefront. I'm trying to see, oh yeah. And like, I know that there's other things that happen in Western tropical. There's something called the progress chart, which adds up to it, which gets you to the most accurate chart for today. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's why I'm like, Western is not wrong, but it has to accommodate for the now, because it doesn't, because it's off by 26 degrees. And however it's worded, that's really the truth. It's off by 26 degrees. So they have to redo another chart. Whereas in Sidereal Vedic astrology, they have charts on top of charts on top of charts. They're called divisional charts. So you don't have to keep updating charts and redoing calculations. The birth chart that you use, the birth time that you have, will give you all the information, and they have a chart specifically for your career. They have a chart specifically for your marriage. They have a chart specific, the marriage chart, and like your true self chart. They have a chart for your kids. They have charts on top of charts, just simply based off of one time. You don't have to redo calculations. You don't have to update it, And so that was also something else that stuck out to me, because if something is done right, quote, if something is done right the first time, then why would you have to go back and do it again? That's just my opinion. One more time. That's just my opinion. I'm really not trying to force this down anybody's throat. It's just like, if you agree with me, then come on over. Because we're going to have fun over this. We're going to have fun with this. I really have had so much fun learning this. I've really had so much fun. It's made me a better tarot reader. It's made me a better person. It just really has. And I had to deal with stepping outside of ego and embracing that, like, I'm a small piece in a very big puzzle. And when you have the true placements of what that means, then you can actually access what it is that you're meant to be doing. We always feel like we're in the dark. We're not in the dark. If you're on this channel, you know that there's a light to be seen. And I truly believe that ancient astrology, Vedic, sidereal astrology, is the true astrology. It deals with true placements. It is what your ancestors use. Western is very new. It's about what? It came about 2,000 years ago. So Western's very new. Sometimes you just don't gotta fix what ain't broke. You know, that's insanity to take something that is not broken and change it. Again, because they were lazy. Let's be honest. When you read the articles, you're gonna see what I'm saying. Like, it was genuinely a laziness from the guy who pushed Western, because he didn't want, because sidereal calculations were so difficult to do. He was just like, well, why don't we just go off of the why don't we go off of the sun and the equinoxes? Why don't we, again, rule it by ego and the equinoxes and see what happens? And at the time when they first were created, it lined up. But what do we know about the sun? This is just general kindergarten science. What do we know about rotation? We have leap years and everything. It's not a perfect sphere. It's an oval. So there's always going to be something missing. It's always going to be a little bit off. So the more the earth has rotated, the more years that have gone past, it's gotten further and further away from the truth. It's headed more towards the sun, ego, somebody's opinion, I don't want to say opinion, obviously, because this is the unpopular opinion, but somebody had the thought to break away, and they got away from what I consider to be the true science. And if you know more people, and if you know a lot of people who are studying Vedic and all that other stuff, this is a big conversation that's to be had. And I really am not trying to wage war. I'm really not trying to start anything different. Again, Aquarius sun. Now, I want everybody to do whatever they love. I think source and spirit is so important. I think everybody should develop their own individual language. I'm just here to suggest that there is actually an accurate language, a more accurate language that will fully describe you and your soul's mission, and you will be able to embrace it. Okay. But it's a hard pill to swallow, because you got to really look at yourself from outside of yourself to really know where you fit in. And that is something just in Western culture that we are struggling with, which is why this is so ironic that this is happening during COVID, during the coronavirus, during this shutdown, which is genuinely asking us as a species to step outside of ourselves, look at the earth as we have it, look at the government, look at everything across the globe, step outside of it for a second, have an objective appreciation for what's happening, so there we can fix it. And that is what Vedic Sidereal astrology has offered to me, and I hope that it offers that same experience to you guys. So, yes. Woo! We made it through. I've been trying to record this video for so long, guys. I do want to do, oh yeah, I'm sorry. One last thing. I really thank you for hanging in there. I hope that this made sense, guys. I really tried to organize my thoughts in the best way that I could, but I'm a Gemini rising, and it's just so hard. It's so hard for me to stay on topic. But I didn't want this video to go on for hours, and it absolutely could. But yeah, this brings me to the changes that are going to come. So if you were just here for that part and you're not here for the channel part, then you can go ahead and click off. But this is for the people who are just for my channel information, because now we're going to be dealing with different energies. That's why I'm switching over to doing pick a cards, because energies are energies are energies are energies are energies. At the end of the day, if you still keep on Western and all the other stuff because you're just so tied to being a Virgo, you're just so tied to being a Taurus, then have at it. All I ask is that because of your ego, or is that because it's the truth? That's all I ask. But if you're tied to it, but if you're tied to something, I still want to incorporate everybody. I don't want to isolate anybody who's joined with me on this path, because I appreciate you, and without you supporting me, I probably wouldn't have made it this far. So I don't want to isolate the base that I have. So that's why we're switching into more general readings, if you will. And again, I try to state both for the time being, but I do eventually want to be able to transition into just using Vedic, because I just think that it's the truer astrologies of the two. And it's important it's very difficult to combine all the different energies, because once you start, and there is Neo-Vedic, because Vedic doesn't take into account the outer planets. It doesn't, but there is Neo-Vedic, which does. So that's Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. I think Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune are very, very important, but they're really important specifically to generations and just like how we are like on a big scale. I forgot why I said that. I forgot what led into that, but let's just say that I knew what I was talking about, and that's a complete thought, because either way, it is important that you do factor into those different planets. Oh yeah, but it just helps. It's on a different scale. And so when you start talking about all the generation things, like is Pluto in Sagittarius or is Pluto in Capricorn, it makes huge difference on how you're going to interpret things. Like, is the new moon happening in Taurus, or is it happening in Aries, or is it happening in, like it leads so much confusion in the long run. That's why I'm just saying this. I'm staking my claim that I'm going to be subscribing to Vedic, which is going to look wrong to a lot of people if you do Western, but I am going to do my best to learn it and share it with you as I'm learning it so you can learn it too, because that is actually one of my true placements in my chart, which is like I learn things, I take them, and I shoot them out so that you can take them along with you. So thank you so much for tuning into this video. Thank you so much for your patience with this video, guys. I really, really hope that this brought some clarity to you. I really hope that you're able to think about astrology in a different way. And if I didn't convince you, so be it. But I do challenge you to definitely look at your chart, your Vedic Sidereal chart. Google it, look it up, and really sit with it for a second. And I could 99% guarantee that like there will be some truths in there that you certainly identify with that you will want to share. So that's what I leave with you guys. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for your continued support. Mwah, peace, and until next time.